Well, hello, good morning, and welcome to an episode of Camilla I. And here we are today at Bentley Wood, and it's a favourite spot, most famous for a butterfly, the Purple Emperor, which you can often find down this track at the right time of year. So anyway, but we're not here for the Purple Emperor today. We're here for dragonflies. We've been having so much luck recently with dragonflies at Blackmore Copse, a very accessible pond, the King Charles Pond. So today we thought we'd try our luck at Bentley Wood. So one of the things we're going to look at today is the 100 to 400 millimeter Sony f4.5 to 5.6 lens still relevant to wildlife photography, and can we use it today to get superb results of the dragonflies? So the three ponds here at Bentley Wood are some distance from the car park, so yeah, we use a trolley on Camilla and I, and as we're packing, well, we got the two systems on today. We've actually got the 70 to 200 on the Sony A9II, and we have the 100 to 400 millimeter on the Sony A1. So yeah, it's this time of year when I like to take two systems out. So we're making the most of the particularly good weather spell we're having at the moment here in the UK, and what we've got is an early summer period where we've got cold nights and cool nights followed by warm sunny days on the whole, and well, this is a bit of a rarity in the UK, so we're making the most of it, and that's why we're out on Camilla and I again doing dragonflies. Ooh, amazing. Just coming up to the turn off from the car park, you just turn right off the main track. It's the first turning off, about 600 meters from the car park. Quick flip you around, show you what I mean. Yeah, so we've got a nice disabled parking spot here, so if you're disabled you're allowed to park there, but otherwise you have to walk 600 meters from the car. Yeah, so we're just doing the last 100-200 meters down this track to where the three ponds are located at Bentley Wood. So it's always a bit of anticipation. You don't know what's exactly going to be flying, and yeah, we've got here right about 9 o'clock with a view to the dragonflies potentially flying around the 10 o'clock mark. As I said, it's been quite cool overnight, and the main activity from the dragonflies doesn't happen until about 10 o'clock. So, happy days. Lovely lie-in this morning. Beautiful. Okay, most unusual for wildlife photography. Right. Anyway, we're just coming up to the turning now for the ponds. When you get to this point, a sort of bend in the road, you want to take this track down here. And this track hopefully leads us to the first pond, which last year was completely overgrown. I don't think they've done any work on it, so I suppose it's still completely overgrown. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, so here we have the first pond at Bentley Wood. And the first pond is very mature, as you can see. It's completely, this is the original pond number 1, and it is pretty well empty of water. But you can see the reeds still coming up there. So the main pond we enjoy is coming up here, one that's been recently manufactured only a couple of years ago now, and yeah, this is the one which is the best photographically. So Yeah, have a look at this pond here. So we can see this is great photographically because we can get down nice and low. We can lay down here. Well, we seem to have timed it just about right for the appearance of the dragonflies at the pond. So yeah, already got a chaser out, probably a southern hawker, and yeah, another little one which I haven't identified yet. Incredible. Quick flip you around. Yeah, so we got a couple there. That was a male broad chaser and probably a southern hawker. Amazing. So the Sony 100-400 was the first real offering Sony had in any telephoto length at all, and it was a couple of years before they brought out the 200-600 and the 600mm, which largely overshadowed this lens. And the question today is it still relevant and is it still useful for our wildlife photography? Well, a couple of weeks back I said the 70-200 was overshadowed by the 200-600, and again this is the thing with the 100-400mm. It has been overshadowed by the superior length, so most of the subjects normally require extra reach, but there are occasions when the 100-400 becomes incredibly relevant again, and one of them is dragonflies, and that's why we're here today, and particularly the dragonflies in flight. So our wildlife photography in general has moved on to insects, as we've just got a marvellous spell of weather here in the UK, which we have to sort of maximise, and it's been an incredible period for the dragonflies. And yeah, now we've used the 600mm and the 200mm, but now we're using my chosen lens, the 100-400, because this is the one I single out for dragonflies in flight. There's just enough reach. 400mm, we max out at 400mm, and it gives us an f5.6 lens, which, as I said before, it's a shame none of the manufacturers make a 400 f5.6, because this is the lens we want to shoot dragonflies, and shoot dragonflies in flight. Despite the fact this is a zoom lens, it's a GM lens, and it is very sharp and it's very quick on the autofocus, and that's what you need, and that's what makes it relevant today. It's its sharp autofocusing capability. Superb. Anything from 1 meter to infinity, we can get crisp, sharp shots. Brought to us with the Sony A1 in no time at all. The autofocus system on the Sony A1 takes this lens to another level. Incredible. So yeah, it's very relevant to our photography. To cut a long story short, if you want to switch off now, it's an amazing lens, and it still has a relevance today in our photography, because I would choose this lens over the 200, over the 600mm for certain, for photographing dragonflies, particularly in flight. We're able to set zone focus, and we're able to pick the dragonflies off as they hover over the pond. Absolutely incredible here on Camilla and I today. So this is advanced wildlife photography, despite this being the first lens in the Sony lineup, the 100-400. This we max out at 400mm, and I put this little camouflage strap on just to make sure the lens don't get any lens creep, and it comes back from 400mm, because we need the 400mm, we need the reach really to get a decent magnification of the subject. And this makes it an f5.6. We may try and drop it down to f7.1, but or f6.3, but obviously the ISO goes up. We're also working at higher speeds. We're working at 3,200 of a second minimum to freeze the dragonfly in flight. We still want to get the wings in focus, so that's why we select, well, 5.6 is a good aperture to start with anyway, but f7.1 would render more of the dragonfly in focus. So how do we catch these fast little beauties in flight? Well, one thing we do is like what we've got now. We've just got one perched up, full spotted chaser, and we know they're going to go back to the same perch a lot of the time. So we know they're going to fly near a perch. So that's a very good technique in itself. But we like to get them in the open because we don't like to do it easy on Camilla and I. So we don't just want them landing. We want them in flight with the legs completely retracted because we're greedy. And the way we do that is that we pre-focus on a reed. We pre-focus on a stick, a branch in the lake. Even with the lightning speed of the Sony A1's autofocus, we still need to roughly gain focus. It's no good travelling the whole range of the autofocus system because that will take a quarter of a second and the subject will be gone. So we have to pre-focus. It's absolutely crucial, especially the closer the subject is to us. We have to pre-focus even more because the depth of field obviously becomes shallower. And the other way we take them is, yeah, we can cheat. We can pick them off at distance, and of course this enables you to have more of the background and indeed more in focus. So that's one way of cheating. And with the Sony A1 obviously you've got 50 megapixels and you can crop heavily, but again we try not to do that. So we're all about technique here, and really it is pre-focusing, acquiring your subject, following its flight pattern. It's very tedious. 1/3200th of a second, f 6.3, and we just try short bursts when we acquire the focus. We're looking carefully through the viewfinder and we're waiting for that focus acquisition, and the moment we get focus acquisition we fire off a few shots, trying not to get too excited and jabbing the shutter button. So just try and smoothly rattle off the shots. Incredible. So yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, especially in this hot weather. So yeah, you hope they slow down, but they don't. So yeah, this is advanced wildlife photography without a doubt. To get them in the air even when they're hovering is quite difficult. I mean, there's some subjects, the emperor and the southern hawker, they're quite large dragonflies and they're a lot easier to do. But this emerald dragonfly that's been around, oh, that's quite flighty, and it never rests. It just always is always out. The four spotted chasers are absolutely beautiful. In fact, there's one over here now. Oh no, that was just a male broad chaser, but in a beautiful position. And what we're looking for is a great background as well. We're looking, in this case with the polarizer on, we're looking for a nice diffused background. And a beautiful in focus subject. The four spotted chasers are absolutely superb, and I'm hoping I've got one of them today in flight, but it's still a question of fingers crossed. You get opportunities, but they are, despite the fact they're flying around all the time, for them to turn up in the same spot that you've predicted their flight pattern to be is very difficult, even when you know what they're doing. So anyway, yeah, it's practice, and yeah, it's great for honing your technique. This is why we do it on Camilla and I. It's a great subject, beautiful photograph, well worthwhile, and it's really difficult to pull off. So yeah, great. But don't do it straight away. Stick to them perched up straight away, it's a lot easier to photograph them when perched. Okay. Oh, like this 4-spotted chaser now, just perched up in the middle of the lake. Quite easy to get video of them. We're using 4K, 100 frames per second, zone focus. Beautiful. Lovely subject. So a couple of bits of kit which I believe are absolutely essential in these conditions. One is a mat, because the edge of the pond is particularly crusty. It's got a lot of mud on it, and it's really bad on the kneecaps, so don't forget your mat. And also essential for you have the subject in the frame for a long period, and you need to be as flexible as possible, so a monopod at least. Even a gimbal head would be useful in these conditions, but we're satisfied at the moment with a monopod for complete flexibility. And of course we've gone for the Polarizer today to take the glare off the water and the wings, hopefully, of the Dragonfly. So obviously the most flexible way of doing Dragonflies in flight is handheld, but this does become quite heavy because the 100 to 400 is not a dedicated 400mm f5.6, and it does weigh, what was it, 1.8 kilos? Put it in the box below. With camera, I mean, you're still holding up a fair lump of metal, so yeah, it still pays. See, I rest it on my arm there, rest it on my knee there, just for support. So really, after a while, you do revert to the monopod, but obviously for complete flexibility in flight, you are better hand holding. So yeah, limit yourself to 20-minute sessions or so, I'd suggest handheld. But yeah, monopod really does very good for video as well. So we do a lot of video now on Camilla and I. So yeah, virtually impossible to handhold. But again, it's just a question of tracking your subject in flight, picking up its regular flight pattern, and then trying to focus in on it, and pre-focusing. Absolutely crucial to pre-focus, whether you're handheld or on the monopod. Handheld. Yep, missed one again there. No, it's not easy. Not easy subject at all. So my ultimate shot today is to get a 4-spotted chaser with the pond background behind, diffused out of focus in flight. Anyway, I don't know if I've got it yet today. Oh, broad chasers landed at my feet. That happens as well, and that's where the 100 to 400 comes in. That focusing down to about a metre really helps, because you get some superb shots in the vegetation as well. As we know in wildlife, if you sit still long enough in one spot, it's incredible what turns up. Just shooting through the vegetation, don't worry too much about the vegetation. Sometimes the shots look beautiful through the natural vegetation. Lovely. So yeah, I suppose that's about it for yeah, an advanced Camilla and I today. I wouldn't suggest in-flight shots. Oh god, got one got one mating in flight. Where's it gone? Oh, one coupled, and now it's going to lay eggs, well, if it gets a chance. So we know as soon we know as soon as it's been mated, it'll start trying to lay eggs. Whoops. Oh. We'll try and get as low as we can. Low as we can, as close as we can. The other male's trying to mate with it as well. Incredible. Broad chase that. Yeah, defending their territory. Incredible. So we love dragonflies on Camilla and I, especially with the 100 to 400. So the 100 to 400 is very relevant to our summer wildlife photography and insect photography in particular here in the UK. I do thoroughly recommend the 100 to 400, but of course it's not the first lens I'd go to. The first wildlife lens I would own, I think it's the 200 to 600. As I said earlier, an amazing lens. But this has got its use even today because there's no dedicated 400 f5.6. Hopefully there's one coming, because Sony have got quite a few lenses in development, but I don't think a 400 f5.6 is one of them. And even if they do, they'd probably do a 400 f4 or something like that. But they've got the 400 f2.8, so yeah. But that is really heavy and really cumbersome to use. A bit like the 600mm. It would be exactly the same as using the 600mm. So yeah, no great advantage. So come on guys, get me a 400 f5.6, a nice beginner wildlife lens please. None of this fancy going to 800mm f11. Don't want that rubbish. We need half the aperture of that, because we'll never get anything with that lens. But with this, we'll get some really good results, and that's why we use it. 100 to 400. Superb bit of glass, and yet still relevant today to Camilla and I's photography. So thanks for watching, have a good one. Bye from the 100 to 400 and Camilla and I.